Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Saturday Morning Coffee. I hope you've got your drink. I myself have a Dunkin' Donuts cold coffee with caramel. All right, before we get started, I have one little. Oh, I don't think that's good. That is bitter. That is so bitter. Okay, before we get started. Oh, this is gonna be a rough episode. That taste just lingers. That taste is lingering in my mouth. Oh, that's what she said. Uh, if Yu-Gi-Oh is your thing, I recently guested on another show that I've guested on before actually. This time, it's a comic book versus video game podcast where we read the comic book or manga and then we played the video game that's associated with it, and then we talk about the differences and like compare and contrast them, that kind of thing. It's pretty fun. But if Yu-Gi-Oh is your thing, I just recently did the newest episode as of right now, on Play Comics, is an episode that I guested on where we compared Yu-Gi-Oh! The Duelist of Roses, the PlayStation 2 game, with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga. And so that was a lot of fun. So if that's kind of your thing, check it out. If Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not your thing, but that podcast sounds great, check it out. Once again, that's Play Comics. But let's get to coffee that does taste good. So I am a basic white bitch at heart. I really am. I love pumpkin spice lattes. And we are now 2 days into pumpkin spice latte season at Starbucks. And to be clear though, this is the only time you will ever catch these hands holding a Starbucks coffee cup. I do not support Starbucks in any way, but I'm sorry, but there is no one else in this town that can make a decent pumpkin spice latte. And only we have probably nearly 15 places you can get coffee in our town. And I think only 4 of them, including Starbucks, has like a variation of pumpkin spice. Maybe one other claims to have pumpkin spice, but just none of them taste as good. And if someone did come up with as good tasting pumpkin spice latte as Starbucks, trust me, I would never go there again. This is a hazard of a smaller town, but to combat it, I am looking for pumpkin spice recipes so that I can just have it like as a premix, just all worked up, ready to go. I don't know how well that's going to work out. Faith and I started looking around for a few recipes. And hopefully we're going to find something decent. I'd rather have something that's like dry, so maybe it could have a more stable shelf life for a little while, and not rather than like a syrup, because that syrup, I'm envisioning it just getting hard because it's being made rather than manufactured in a factory. So I don't know. The point of this is that I'm a basic bitch and I love pumpkin spice lattes. I don't know why. And it's not even like fall is my favorite season, and this totally reminds me of it. That is not it. I just love pumpkin spice. Spring is my favorite season, and I'll fight anyone who says that spring isn't the best season, because let me tell you what, when the flowers start popping up, the rain starts coming, there is no better time of the year. All right, I gotta take another drink of this nasty. Oh yeah. No. Oh. I'm gonna try to not bitch about it as much on the rest of this episode, but okay. So as you've probably gathered, if you've been a long time listener of this podcast, I kind of jump around on having like jump around on all my podcast ideas, and I'm like, oh, I'm working on this, I'm working on this, I'm working on this. It's true. I really am working on about 50 different podcast ideas. Um, and that list of episodes in the planning and research phase just keeps growing. But it's because I get distracted by the next shiny thing, the next shiny idea. And this has been a character trait, not a flaw, a trait, my whole life. Which is why I've always wanted a creative partner, someone to make this content with that can help me, like, will help me execute and work on things, because I can pump out ideas all day and night. And I can do a lot of research, and I can get things all put together, ideas, all blah, blah, blah. But it's the staying focused on what we have and producing something that I kind of fall short on. And speaking of always wanting a creative partner, I remember, like, I've been wanting to make content. I must have been, let's see, I moved to Lewiston in 4th grade. That made me, 9? I have probably wanted to make YouTube videos since I was 11 years old. Which puts me in 6th grade, which is 2000. God, 2000, early YouTube. Let me put it like that. Okay. Early YouTube. I realized that I wanted to start making content, but try as I have tried so goddamn hard, I could not get any of my friends to be interested in making YouTube videos. Hell, I even tried to get them to, like, okay, let's learn in programming language and art, because of the 4 of us, we really love art. One of us is really good at making art, and the rest of us are pretty technically minded. We could learn a programming language and make a video game. Nope, couldn't get them to do that either. And so I've just never had, like, creative partners to produce things. I've never had friends that were really interested in that. And thankfully, I think for a very brief moment in time, my roommates, when I lived in Texas, we made a podcast together. Ideally, you shouldn't be able to find it. We deleted it. Because there were some crass jokes in there. Nothing offensive. But for instance, a joke about, I don't know if I should say it, but it's like, good-hearted jokes that don't make fun of anyone, but they were just, crass. And so they wanted to go on to have more professional jobs, and so we decided to delete the podcast. But that's the only time I've had a creative partner, until recently, when Faith and I started up our Lorcana trading card game podcast, Quest for 5, that we do every week too. And so it's not quite to the level of creative partner that I necessarily, like, have always been searching for, but it does scratch that itch a little bit. But I guess the point of this is to say, I know that I've talked about an endless stream of, oh, I have this idea, I have that idea, this episode's in the works. Trust me, please believe me, that all of these episodes are still in the work, and that I am working on them. And hopefully we'll have them out eventually. But, of course, I knew this was coming, but school started back up, which means a good section of my time is now taken up. But good news for the content space for me is that because of some nightmares I've been dealing with, I'm no longer a full-time student. I'm only taking 2 instead of 4 classes, and so I will have a considerable amount of more time on my hands than, like, what I had all of last year. And let me talk to you about this nightmare I've been having with my college. It's a nightmare in just about every area. It could be a nightmare. let's start with my advisor. My advisor doesn't know anything about me. Didn't know I already had a bachelor's degree, so that meant that I was a post-baccalaureate student. The advisor has never reached out to me. I have had to reach out to them every single time for everything. I awful experience with this advisor, and so I've basically just had to use other professors as my advisors, and thankfully my college's policy on advising is pretty lenient, so you can just talk to anyone, because otherwise I don't know what I would have done. And then just getting a part-time schedule has also been a nightmare, because I was told that I could sign up for the in-person classes but do it online, because they just didn't want to offer an online course, because then everyone would want to take it and then they wouldn't have anyone in the classroom. Fine. Yeah, great. Whatever. Signed up for those classes, for two in-person classes as my online class, as to participate in them online. And then I was going back and forth with one of the professors, and he was like, yeah, you'll get a live link to the classroom soon. And I was like, no. That's why I asked if my situation had been communicated to you. I work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. I can't be taken off, 3 hours a week to go to just a single class. Like that's not how that works. And he told me, well, if you can't even attend Zoom, then I think you should just drop out of my class. This isn't the right class for you. And I was like, what the fuck? Because I had already had to submit special paperwork to take this class. I had already done this whole process to get into this. It has been one thing after another to get my class schedule figured out. And then like after semester had already started, he tells me this. And I was just so damn frustrated and then panicking, because then I was like, great, now I have to redo this whole process with financial aid, that I guess I should have started this conversation off with. I got to go through that whole damn process again and submit new paperwork and stuff. Thankfully, financial aid let me just slide by, and I didn't have to resubmit this big long process. And so finally found some classes that I can actually operate in and that work asynchronously. But then the biggest nightmare that I should have started with has been financial aid. First of all, my loan servicer told my college, earlier last year, they conveniently missed the message about me being in school again and started charging me for monthly payments. Screw you guys. And then they reported to the college that I had exceeded my loan limits, except those loan limits are for undergraduate loans. And if you only count undergraduate loans, I haven't exceeded those loan limits. And so I have to go through this big, long process of requesting that they reevaluate these loans and report the accurate numbers. And to get this paper, first I download it from the website, and then I get it all submitted. I send it over to the college to sign it themselves before I can give it to my loan servicer. But I go to the college, and they're like, we need a wet signature. And I'm like, what the hell is a wet signature? What do you mean? And at this point, financial aid office is already taking days, if not a week, to get back to me each time I email them. Which is why this process has been going through the entire summer. And then they go, well, you need to print it out and sign it and then send it to us. And I'm like, okay, do you want that by mail? Or can I scan the hand-signed paper and send it to you? And that was about a month ago that I sent that email. Still no response to that email. So I just scanned it and sent it back in 2 weeks ago. Never got a response to that. Never got a confirmation. Never got anything to me sending that in. They also said, actually, I'll get to that in a second. And so I submitted this paperwork. My mouth's getting dry. Sorry. I submitted this asinine paperwork. Which, by the way, if you're gonna say some kind of like slang term like wet signature, you don't know that I'm not an 18-year-old freshly out of high school student who maybe, I don't know, like has never even done his laundry. Okay, that's the thing. I have taught many 18-year-olds in my life how to do their laundry, how to wash dishes, how to sweep, how to mop. This is the very real lacking life skills in 18-year-olds that I have specifically had to work with. And after all that, don't if you're a financial aid office or an advisor or anything, don't use slang. That's just rude. Anyways, their other thing was like, oh, well, the loan servicer said you're $3 over the limit. So if you pay those $3, we can offer you scholarships. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So I paid those $3 and I tried to get this paperwork submitted. Nothing got processed. Nothing got reviewed or accepted despite my constant badgering so that I could get loans to go to school full time this semester. So it's been an actual nightmare. And finally, I had to drop down to part-time after like the day before semester started. And then I had to go through this whole paperwork process to use what's called a reciprocal education agreement, because the university I work for has an agreement with the college I take classes from that as long as I'm not taking more than 7 credits, I can have free tuition. And so I had to do this paperwork process, which had no identification anywhere of where I should send it to. So now I'm trying to guess, like, okay, what's the right department to send this to? Thankfully, I got it right on the first guess. And then they had to route it to the college. And then I was like, when I had to change classes, I was like, crap, I got to resubmit this paperwork. And who knows if it's going to get processed in time. It's just been one thing after another. And let me tell you what, if I had a degree that was like 10% more useful than what I do have already, I would have just said screw it and I would have dropped out this semester, because the amount of frustration and headache coming from the financial aid office and my advising and just like all of the heavily anti or at least non-friendly distance learner policies that the college has been a nightmare to deal with. And I have a very lengthy letter that is in the process that I'm trying real hard not to be like just another disgruntled student. I'm trying to be very like neutral in this letter. And like say like this is what I experienced. This does not work. Here's why. Here's what could work. That is what I'm trying to do with this letter. But that letter is going to go out when I graduate and I have this degree and I don't have to worry about any backlash from the department that I'm trying to get my degree from. Because, dear Lord, oh. So bitter it made me cough. Yeah. Anyways, you know what? On the bright side, maybe it's a good idea that I had to drop down to part-time this year, because that'll give me more time to plan the wedding. And we had to change our venue because of this whole thing with the Idaho Parks and Recreation reservation site. We can't reserve our site until 9 months ahead of time. And then as that date got closer, they went, oh, by the way, Our system will be down for 4 months, and you won't be able to reserve anything until January 6th. And I was like, huh, that's a funny date to have set, January 6th. Okay. And so that meant that I wouldn't be able to reserve our wedding venue until 6 months ahead of time. If you know me in the slightest, if this is anything other than your very first episode, I think you could gather that that is absolutely, unequivocally not going to work for me, Michael Bibbins. I cannot wait 6 months in advance to get a reservation for my wedding. Absolutely not. That puts off so much planning and all the logistics and stuff that I've been trying to get set up, and then being told, oh, you're gonna have to wait until January 6th when you get a confirmation to be able to do this. So I was like, okay, nope, that's not gonna happen. So we had to change venue. And I remember how this is connected. I was like, how is this connected to anything that I was just saying? So we had to change the venue. And side note, I know I'm all over the place. Side note, I made a joke last time about, I know my mom is listening to this telling me to breathe. I know 100% that my mom is also listening to this episode telling me to breathe. She actually texted me about this. But what I'm trying to say is, we changed the venues. This new venue it's going to be free for us, but it's going to require a lot more logistics. And so now I need more time to plan things. Like, now I have to actually plan where the chairs come from, where are the tables. Now we need to plan more activities, and now, we're no longer having cabins. So now I need to try and figure out hotels and things like that. So there's a lot more planning in it, but we're saving a lot of money because we're not paying for the venue. So anyways, that's why I'm kind of glad that, I was forced to drop down to part-time, because if there was ever a year for this disaster, it would be this year. So it kind of worked out, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, man. Sorry, I said I wouldn't bitch about it again, but wow. To be fair, this is not from a Dunkin' Donuts. We don't have a Dunkin' Donuts. This is like their premix stuff. It's just in a packet. So I'll give it that, but whew. Okay. I love nature. We all love nature. Someday I would love to come up. All I have for this is an episode title. I don't have any concepts for it, but it's just nature is metal, because it is. Nature is hardcore. I love watching nature documentaries. I could sit down and watch a nature documentary all day long, all night. Let me tell you, the amount of ideas I get for my writings just from our natural world, explosive number of ideas, whether it's watching animals or nature or a geographic stuff, any of that, all day, all night. I know a lot of people I've been around in my life has said nature documentaries just put me to sleep, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, not for me, man. I get so excited watching nature documentaries. So if I could do a bunch of nature stuff, I would. I'm telling you, if I had any foresight and had spent maybe one more year between high school and college, I probably would have been a natural resource major, and I probably would have gone and worked for Parks and Rec, or the forest rangers, or just anything to be out in nature, because Also, if, I didn't have chronic back pain since the time I was a little kid, that would be the other thing kind of holding me back. But if I could redo life, I would, first of all, make sure that I actually got the care I needed from a competent physician to fix my back. And then I would have gone into a natural resource field for my job. And because I love nature, and I wish I could just work out in it every day. And so I want to do like a Nature's Metal episode. You heard me talk about like my favorite animals and what I would do as like an experiential episode with each of those animals. But another thing that caught me off guard is I was listening to some podcast, I think. Yeah, it was a podcast, and someone offhandedly mentioned that elephants mourn their dead. And I was like, that struck, and I was like, okay, I got to look into this. Elephants that mourn their dead. And then I was like, okay, my broader question is, I'm more interested in what animals do mourn their dead, and possibly like what does that look like. And not surprisingly, there's a large amount of people that are interested in this. Of course, there are all sorts of questionably reputable websites. Not that they're like sketchy sites, but like I'm like, all right, how much of your saying is like reputable? Maybe I could talk to a zoologist about this and do a follow-up. But animals that mourn their dead. For instance, African elephants are known to bury their dead calves, and they also cry. And there have been other instances in which members of other families have come to like investigate a dead elephant, and like kind of like, like it could give the appearance of mourning. But the more I read it, I was like, it kind of seems like they're just checking out the body to see how it died and see if they need to be concerned for their own well-being, that's some of it. So, and you're going to, the more I looked into this, the more that question kept popping up, is how much of this is mourning rather than these animals are actually just, checking to see how this other member of their species died and to see if they need to be worried, or like kind of similar things. But there were some other animals that kind of exhibited a similar behavior that could questionably be considered mourning. Like monkeys, who guard over their dead for days. There was something like a mother monkey carried its dead child for like, I think it was 68 days that I saw. Which, wow, that's pretty brutal. That monkey, like that decomp has already started at that point, right? And they actually said that with some other animals, like even when decomp had started, these animals would still carry around their dead young. And then there's like some evidence, I guess, for a similar behavior existing in everything from like dolphins and giraffes, dogs, gorillas, songbirds. I think whales too. So like dolphins and whales would like kind of carry along their like dead baby or their dead partner for some time. And if you look at all these animals that I'm talking about, they're all very family oriented animals that keep close ties with their family, or maybe like an extended family. And then with giraffes, it was like the evidence was like one mother giraffe standing over, almost protecting the body of her child, and like other giraffes came and like put their head down around the mother giraffe's neck, kind of like a hug thing. And then dogs, I'm sure we're all familiar with stories about like dogs who stood at their owner's gravesite. Those kinds of things. And then gorillas do similar things to like monkeys, guarding over the dead. Yeah. And then crows will also like hang around other dead crows. That one especially to me looked to me like they were just investigating the body and wanted to see if they themselves should be concerned, like self-preservation rather than mourning the dead. And so basically the science on this is inconclusive and nobody wants to jump to conclusions. And there's no like surefire answer about can we 100% say that these animals are mourning their dead versus, acting out of self-preservation and investigating, why another member, is dead. So that kind of, I wanted to do a full episode on this, but then I kind of realized, no, I thought maybe I could just drop this for Saturday morning coffee. Because like it was so inconclusive. And a lot of the research that I was doing on this one, like the animals, like I was saying, it was just like a lot of it was, from websites that I didn't want to necessarily say, oh yeah, here's something I'm going to put in my works cited. And I don't have the time to read a bunch of like dense research papers to pull out anything to support this episode. I would love to be able to do that. And that's part of the reason that it holds up my Wednesdays is because my Wednesday episodes, because doing that takes so much more time and effort that is just so precious. When I already do this episode every Saturday, I do another podcast that comes out every Monday. That's the one with Faith on top of school and everything. And so, any of those like heavy research ones, really tough to get out and actually like finish up the research on. So, all right. We didn't finish my coffee this time. No surprises there. After how you've heard me talk, I don't even know if I'm going to be, I can't, personally, I cannot waste food. I can't waste anything. It's a real lifelong problem. That, screw it. We got time. The funny story behind that is that when I was a kid, my great grandmother, caught me wasting grapes, and she made me write at, I don't know, I had to have been like 6 or 7. She made me write 100 times on a piece of paper, I will not waste grapes at grandma's house. And after that moment, that unlocked this section of my brain who told me you will never waste food or drink or anything for the rest of your life. And now I can't. It is a serious problem. I cannot let anything, I will pick the mold off of bread. Everything gets a sniff test. It doesn't matter how old it is. And then I'm incapable of letting food or drinks go to waste. So long story short, I'm going to be drinking the rest of this coffee, as awful as it is. And I'm going to leave us off. I think instead of recapping and like sharing the most interesting things from the many podcasts I listen to every week, which I don't think people are necessarily enjoying. Instead, I'm just going to leave off each Saturday morning coffee episode with a podcast recommendation. And that'll be whatever, like maybe my favorite podcast was, or something I newly discovered that I'm falling in love with, and I think you should check out. And so today's I'm gonna actually leave off with this one. It's What a Cartoon. Specifically, check out the episode What a Cartoon, X-Men 97, To Me, My X-Men. This is a nerdy podcast where they take a cartoon episode or a movie and they do a ton of behind the scenes research and just create a full 3-hour documentary on a single podcast, a single cartoon episode or a movie. And it's so incredibly well done. It researches like the history of that content. It researches like all of the people behind it, what inspired different things. It's an incredibly well done and well researched podcast, and they only rarely put out free episodes. And thankfully, they put out the X-Men 97 episode for free, and so I recommend checking that out. You can listen to that anywhere you can listen to podcasts. Yeah, that's my recommendation. Thanks for joining me on Saturday Morning Coffee.